This is Smores. Smores is a 4-year-old gypsy vanner, which makes him unique in the fact that of the horses in this program, he's not a stock breed horse. He's actually considered a light draft breed. So he's built a little bit differently. As you see him walking around, you can see he's a little bit heavier or thicker through his neck, and his neck ties into his body a little bit lower, so the brown spot on his chest, you can see that his neck goes down a little bit further than the other horses, which means that he's a little bit heavier on his front end. So he displaces a little bit more of his body weight on his front end and actually does a little bit more of pulling his body along with his front legs. So as you can see him walking around, he's got a very even gait. With the leg wraps, it helps to see that. He also steps up where his hind feet are landing right in his front footprints. If we follow it up to his back, you can watch his back. He's got a lot of rotational movement. So as his right hind leg comes forward, you can really see his hip drop down. So he's a really good example of when his hind end goes up, his head goes up, and his shoulders come down. When his hind end goes down, his shoulders come up, and his head goes down. Kirby, can you just have him walk out a little bit? So that's his regular gait, and he's got a lot of movement. The rotation, if you look right in front of his pelvis through his spine, you can see that there's a lot of forward push from his hind legs. He's got a really strong loin. So because he's short-backed, the rider is going to get a lot more movement. So they're going to get a lot of anterior, posterior, and a lot of rotational. Again, you can see he's very, what you could call heavy, and very methodical with his footprints. So the rider's going to get a lot of input. Can you have him trot, Kirby? So as he trots, because he's a young horse, he's got a lot of suspension through his back still. So as he's trotting, you can watch his hips go up and down. He's got a lot of softness through his spine. And that softness goes all the way up to that brown spot over his shoulders, over his withers. So for a rider, the trotting is going to have a lot of suspension, a lot more than the other horses, and that's because he's young. You can also see that when he trots, you can see that his front end is doing about 50% of the work, and his hind end is pushing from behind, but not nearly as much as you were seeing from the quarter horse breeds or the stock breeds. So he's got a little bit more pull, but he's nice and soft through his body, so he's going to give the riders a lot of movement. Good, Kirby, you can have him walk. Perfect. Again, he's soft through his neck. Even though his neck is heavy, he keeps his neck soft, and so his neck has movement, which means that the rider is getting input all the way up through his rib cage and through his thoracic spine. Good, Kirby. Do you want to walk him towards me? Good, so he's really square and straight through his movements. You can see his barrel has got a nice roll to it. He's very broad. As he walks by, you can see that his back, again, because he has a lot of suspension in his gait, he's got a lot of rotation of his pelvis. We'll do some stops and starts on the long side. Good, so when he walks, see how his pelvis comes up and forward? He's got a little bit of a posterior pelvic tilt, so when he stops really square on his front end. So he's good for the abrupt movement changes. Great, Kirby. If we could go through the cones. So watch him, he's going to bend through his entire body because his back's a little bit shorter than the rest of them. He's got a good bend. Here it's the purple hind leg pushing diagonal forward. Now he changes and it's the green hind leg to push it diagonally forward. And you can really see that he is very methodical with his hind foot placement when he weaves through the cones. So it's going to be a lot of push to the rider. Good, Kirby. We'll have him walk over the poles. He's also a horse that it would be good to be able to manipulate the length of his gait because you're going to increase the rotation of his pelvis. So we have the poles set so that he has to step a little bit further. So he's going to drive a little bit more with his hind legs, increase the motion. Good. So overall, S'mores is really good because he's young. He's got good suspension through his back. He's got a short back, so he's going to give the rider a lot of input. And he's got a lot of rotation to his pelvis.